Hello, yeah, I'm on mute.
Okay, cool. We'll give another 30 seconds. If Ken doesn't show up, we'll just kind of get started. Mark, are you okay steering?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'd say is, Alex, why don't we, since we pushed you from last time, why don't we do you first, in which case, go ahead and load up your deck.
Sounds good. Okay, do you want me to share?
Yeah, go for it. Steer away.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, what I'd say at this point is just, why don't you just go ahead with your presentation, and then if Ken joins, then we can talk more about the document business at the end.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thanks. All right. So I'd like to talk to you about OpenFaaS, which is a framework for doing serverless applications on top of Docker and Kubernetes. It's a quick introduction. I'll give you a demo and we'll have a chance to ask some questions afterwards. So I wanted to start off by saying, what is serverless? Well, we used to build our systems as monoliths. They were very hard to break up, very slow to deploy and to test. Microservices were the next step for us, and we started to break things down into logical groupings. And functions really are the next step in the evolution. So functions are smaller than microservices. They tend to do only one thing, and they're discrete. You can write your function, it should be clearly defined, and deploy it, pretty much forget about it. Functions do tend to work really well with existing backends, so they may make use of monoliths and microservices to do their job. And they're great for building event-driven architectures. So when I talk about serverless, we're really talking about that architectural pattern. Just like the cloud isn't in the sky, serverless really isn't just about not having servers, it's about an experience and a pattern. So Amazon have the Echo Dot, and it is a voice assistant with an IoT backend. There's some backend services that will parse your voice and figure out what you were saying, and then call a function. Your function may make use of backend services, such as here on this diagram, a weather service, and then figure out what it is that you're to say. So it has a discrete input, processes some work, and it has an output. You can actually replace Lambda for OpenFaaS and Docker containers, and your code will work exactly the same. Now that matters because it allows you to work in whatever programming languages your team are used to, run your code wherever you want and for however long you need to. And that, for some teams, can be very important. Now, there are a few driving factors to FaaS. Main one is ease of use. So from day one, there's been a one-line script to deploy FaaS, and it takes around 60 seconds. There's a UI built in that lets you look at your functions and navigate your way around. It's portable. It can run on your laptop, on premise, in the cloud. You can even run on a Raspberry Pi if that's what you want to do. You might have seen that on Hacker News over the weekend. Now, it also applies simplicity, both in its architecture and its design. The idea here isn't to construct something that's complicated. We should lean on the existing cloud-native technologies and what containers have already done for us. It's an open platform, which means that you can extend things. So if you want to build a new backend for Marathon, Mesos, you can do that. So how did FaaS come about? Well, initially I wanted to build a solution that would let me run Lambda functions on containers. As a Docker captain, that was something I was really interested in. And I was able to transfer my Alexa skills over to Docker Swarm. I learned a bunch of stuff while I was doing that, and I decided that I wasn't doing everything the right way. So when I heard about the DockerCon Cool Hacks contest, and it had this remit to push Docker beyond what it was designed to do, I decided to pivot the code and rewrite it in Golang and approach it fresh. That was incredibly successful. I won as one of the contest winners and was able to present in front of 5,000 people. And Amir helped me along the way with that, so I'm very appreciative. Now, there have been some major changes since DockerCon. This was actually last week the top trending open source project on GitHub overall, which was incredible. And then it's also spent several days up as the top Golang project. It's gained over 4.4 thousand GitHub stars. We have a Kubernetes support now. And as I say, any external provider, and that could be something like HyperSH or even Azure ACI, you can, as long as you can conform to the RESTful API, you can provide that and reuse FAS and everything else. We have asynchronous processing now available through NATS, and that's perfect for tasks like machine learning or video conversion, which is running through NAT streaming. But as I say, this is an open platform, so you can swap that out. We have a CLI that improves the experience and allows you to make use of templates if you want to. I'll show you that in a second. We also have regular contributors now and a growing Slack community. So OpenFAS is built on containers, so that's our basic primitive. The containers are just in the OCI format. Containers allow us to do things like push the security higher than what we can do on, for instance, a Lambda function by using a read-only file system, maybe dropping privileges and checking content trust. The functions are managed by the orchestration platform, not by FAS. So FAS is leaning on the underlying learnings of those systems. So we have this rich container ecosystem, and we can use it. So if you are a commercial customer of Docker and you have Docker Enterprise Edition, you can use all of the features that are available there alongside this. If you're a Kubernetes Tectonic customer, again, you can reuse all of that infrastructure and ecosystem that's already there. So we're kind of avoiding that vendor lock-in. You don't have to feel uncomfortable. You can run this anywhere and leverage the existing skills in your team. And this is one thing that I think maybe sets it apart at the moment, is that you can also run on Windows as a backend. So you can package up existing .NET processes or native Windows applications and run them as backend functions. So anything can be a function. It comes in one flavor, which is cloud native. The API gateway and function Watchdog are both written in Golang. Prometheus underpins the whole stack and tracks metrics for us. That allows us to know how long functions are taking to run. Also allows us to auto scale by using the Swarm or Kubernetes API. Those also provide us with resilience and fault tolerance and allow us to scale across multiple machines. Now, excuse me, the API gateway is where we define your functions, and every function would get its own unique route. Function Watchdog is what makes any container into a serverless function. That is embedded and is the entry point to your function, to your container. What happens is it exposes a HTTP port. As a request comes in, it acts a bit like CGI, and it will marshal that into a fork process and read the response. So even things that aren't designed for the web, like FFmpeg and ImageMagick, can become serverless functions very, very quickly. Here's an example of the YAML stack that we've started to define. At the top, you have a very tiny hello world example, and that can be used along with the Python template to create this URL ping. We also see the image that we would publish this as, the Docker image. In that example, it's Alex Ellis URL ping. And then we have a regular Docker image there, which contains ImageMagick called resizer, and the process that is run for every request. So that just converts whatever bytes come from standard in into 50% of the size. And I'll show you that in a second. There's two main actions to the CLI. Build will build any templates that you need into Docker images, and deploy will set them into the backend. So let's have a really quick look at that then. So I have a Kubernetes cluster here without any services deployed on it yet. And FAS, along with proper RBAC permissions, has just been created. In a couple of seconds, we should see the API gateway has appeared. And we have a bunch of functions here. Now, the one that I spoke about earlier was URL ping. And if we put in an address here into the request body and hit the invoke button, we get a response status and the output at the bottom half of the screen. And that's how we can run our functions. We can also run them through curl. So the stack that I spoke about earlier and the CLI can be used to build our Docker templates. And this is the example that I showed you in the slide. And then we can use the deploy, and we'll now see appearing the echo function that's part of that stack. Actually, it's strong hash. I've renamed it. And what happens here is you can get a strong hash from your function. What I want to do is just call that in a loop, because there's auto-scaling built into this, and we'll be able to see through the built-in Prometheus metrics that we can cause some traffic at an amount that will cause it to auto-scale. So this is a live metric at the moment as it's being measured. And as that is live for 30 seconds, it will start to fire off the API alert. So Alert Manager will send that back to the API gateway. And in a second, we see that we've now got 5 replicas, and that will keep going up. If we cancel the curl, it will back itself back down to 1 replica again. There's a couple of other functions I want to show you very quickly. This is the shrink image function, and I'm going to put the FAS logo into it. And out the other side, we get half size, 50% size FAS logo. And as I showed you on the slide, it's just a simple call into ImageMagick. It's just a regular binary. Now, a more real-world example of how I've been able to use FAS to do something useful for the project is if somebody raises a pull request and they haven't signed off their commit, there's actually a small bot that will take the event from GitHub, and it will then let them know that they need to sign it. It put a label on it, and I'll just show you that really quickly. So we see this bot, Derek, got the message from GitHub that there'd been a new pull request. He checked the commits and he added this label, no DCO, no developer sign off. If you then repush, he'll take the label off again. And that's an example of a real-world FAS function. So there's just another couple of things I wanted to say, and I'll hand it back over.
Alex,
FAS.
going back to a previous slide that you had, they had the YAML.
Yeah.
Last week we had Chris Munns from AWS talk about SAM. Have you looked at SAM and how that would potentially be able to use your YAML and possibly fit it into his model?
That is not something that I've looked at, no.
Okay, thanks.
However, this is quite similar to the YAML that's used by Austin's project, serverless project. And I think there's potential to create a serverless provider for Austin's framework, so that as well as targeting Azure or Google Cloud, Austin could also target OpenFAS as an example.
Yes, Alex, I think you're chatting with Philip about that on our team. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we've been a bit busy with a few product priorities of our own, but just keep pinging me if you can't get in touch with Philip for any reason.
Yeah, that would be great. So I just wanted to say, I know we've gone a few minutes over the slot. Is what's next for OpenFAS? Well, really, we've hit just under or over 5,000 GitHub stars now. I'd love that to get up to 10,000 by the end of the year. And the roadmap now is about supporting people that are starting to evaluate this, because not everybody is using it in a way we expect them to. So I've had a team at ADP in the Innovation Lab in New York who spent an hour at the Docker New York meetup showing people how to use FAS to replace microservices. Discussing with CodeFresh's CTO how they may build the next set of services for their systems, which are event-driven, upon OpenFAS. And the guys over at IRT Saint-Exupéry in France are using OpenFAS for machine learning to train models and to run simulations, which is very, very interesting. The asynchronous work is perfect for that. Now we've got some additional language templates, C# and Ruby. I don't necessarily want to go crazy with them. So we have 3 or 4 that are very popular at the moment, but you can use anything as a container, right? The templates just help you get somewhere fast. We're going to curate the user experience a bit more by creating new guides and manuals and making sure we've got a tutorial for each developer cloud. You might have seen some of the branding and the website that I put up today. Contributors are still drawing into the project, which is fantastic. We've got people with a wide range of skills, which is really helping. And we've had some initial sponsorship from Packet in the way of the website. So really, we're looking to find a home for the project and to continue developing it. If you're at any of the events below, you can hear me speak on this project and potentially at KubeCon as well. So thank you so much for your time. You can head over to the project here, and I've just put another slide at the end with some interesting demos you can look at.
Well done.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Any questions for Alex?
Can we get a link to these slides added to the minutes of this meeting?
Yeah, I'll put it onto SlideShare.
Awesome, thank you.
Alex, just a quick question. Right now, the project is just affiliated with you, right? Not any commercial entity like Docker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. So the project is not affiliated with ADP. It's not affiliated with Docker. This is a personal project. But we have seen contributions from a good number of people now, and especially some regular contributors, which is why I'm also looking to see, is there a home we could put this in, maybe an organization or something like that.
Sounds good, thanks.
And you're also rebranding it and looking to have it outside of your own personal GitHub, correct?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm looking at the moment.
Hi, Alex. Austin here.
Hi, Austin.
It's been a while since we last spoke, but congrats on the progress and the traction. It looks like you've done an amazing job navigating this project. So well done. Just one quick question for you. I'm not super up to date on all the progress here, but I saw you have a NATS integration. I was curious if you already had a Kafka integration or if that was in the works. And if you don't have it, why you prioritize NATS over Kafka?
Yeah, so effectively, I think asynchronous processing is something that every framework needs to have to some degree. And the fact that we provided a reference implementation with NATS streaming doesn't mean that it's the only one that there could be. We just needed one reference implementation that would be able to get us something running that was going to be resilient and easy to integrate. So NATS streaming is written in Golang. It's unlike the previous generation of NATS in that it's got a transactional log and you can replay items. And we had some very good experiences with getting to proof of concept with it.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So yeah, that's something that is key here, that it's open, it's extensible. And I think somebody could easily come along and write a scheduler for Nomad and take advantage of the format that we're using here. That Watchdog allows the runtime to be separate from the scheduling constraints. So the container is just working through standard in and standard out.
Great.
Okay.
Anything else? All right.
I have two questions. The first question is the name is FAS or OpenFAS?
Could you speak up, please, whoever's talking, or get closer to the mic?
You hear me now? You hear me now? You hear me better now?
Yeah, that's better. Yes, thanks.
Okay, so Maciej from Serverless. My question is about the name. Are you sticking to FAS, or are you planning to rename it to OpenFAS?
So that's one of the issues that's open on the repository at the moment, is the in progress to brand the project as OpenFAS. If it was to move into an organization called OpenFAS, the main repo might be called FAS, or it might be called OpenFAS. But I think, yeah, the name is becoming more concretely OpenFAS.
Okay, cool. The second question is, how do you persist configuration? I mean, are you storing that like on disk, or how the architecture look like?
Yeah, so for instance, the bot that I mentioned, Derek, he's obviously configured with an OAuth token, right? So that it can work with GitHub and it can decide whether your message is signed or not. That is, I believe there might be Stack available for it. I didn't check it in. But basically the stack for the Derek bot is using environmental variables. The reason that it's using that is because it is portable to almost any orchestration platform. However, what we're more likely to do is to look at maybe using Vault for both Docker Swarm and Kubernetes as a backend service. And then if you decide to implement Marathon as a backend for whatever reason, you either use Vault as well or your own implementation. Docker Swarm does have, and it's quite new, configuration management. So again, it would be to make use of backend services that are cloud native and already being used with containers.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so thank you, Alex, for presenting to us, and I'm sure that people can follow up with you offline if they have any more questions.
Yeah, we operate a Slack community. There's not an invitation page yet, but if you get in touch with me through the CNCF Slack or Twitter, I can invite you to it and you can come and ask questions and chat with us. That would be great.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Now, Doug Davis wasn't able to attend today because of his travel. He did do some updates to the working document. I put a link into the Zoom chat for people to be able to link to it. What I suggest is for people to read over the latest version. I believe that a lot of the changes have to do with moving things into appendixes and making the flow work much better. Has anyone had a chance to look over the recent changes?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have looked at that. I think Doug moved quite some sections which we discussed last meeting to the appendix. I think we probably still need to go through them and then to polish it, better.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. So I think what that means is, the action item for everyone on the call that wants to participate in this is to do another pass over the latest document, and let's get the feedback in either within the document or through the mailing list.
Sounds good.
I think there's one action item from last time about trying to get some wording for the perceived difference between serverless and FAS that Chris was talking about. That's Chris from AWS. Has anyone heard anything from him? Or was someone else going to look
Rob
into that?
Dolan. I volunteered to participate in that, and I think there were 4 volunteers, but I don't think anyone kicked a thread among us to move it forward. I think it was myself, Doug, Kathy, and one other person.
Well, probably. I think Chris was going to provide us input, but not necessarily write it themselves. He was going to give us links to other projects and how they were describing serverless and FAS.
Hi, this is Arun. So what I'll do is I will follow up with Chris and ask him to provide the wordings as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
he also shared his slides, so I just posted them in the chat. So it was my bad for not sending out to the mailing list.
Yaron, could you make sure that Doug, Ken, and myself are CC'd on the email to Chris?
I will.
Thank you. All right. Do people have anything else that they want to talk about today?
I have a question. So so we need to probably to discuss a little bit about what's the goal of this document. So what is I mean, how CNCF is going to to use this document? What is the goal? So that will help, that will help we decide, what sections should be put into the document and how we should, approach that better.
In my opinion, I believe we need to look at what are our recommendations or suggestions to the talk in terms of areas that we could pursue past this white paper. Without being prescriptive in terms of what the content should necessarily be.
Yeah, I also see it as an opportunity to recommend to the TOC which projects they should be looking at or evaluating, potentially bringing into CNCF. That's another kind of key piece, and that's how other working groups have operated, such as networking, that recommended that CNI come in, and now they're kind of evaluating the wider networking space to see what things should potentially come into the foundation. So that's kind of how I view things.
If you're all done discussing that matter, I'd like to just make a quick introduction. I'm Austin Collins, founder, CEO of Serverless Inc. We make the serverless application framework, and this is the first CNCF call that we've attended. We're looking forward to attending a lot more. The activity that's happening here is exciting. What we're focused on specifically is building out the application framework and providing a uniform experience to deploy your functions everywhere. So the topics like standardization and integration are very much of interest to us. So if anyone wants to have those conversations, we'd love to talk further about it. You can reach out to me. I'm austin@serverless.com, AUSCEN. Otherwise, there are several members of my team on this call, and we'll probably be attending all of the future CNCF calls. But overall, excited about the things everyone is discussing here, some of the standards that people are proposing. It's very much needed from what we've seen. So yeah, excited to be joining.
Great to have you, Austin. Oh, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, Austin, great to have you on the call. It would be nice if you could take a look at the white paper, and I know that we're probably not thorough enough with respect to how people are using application frameworks to be able to utilize serverless, and so expanding in those areas might be good if we could get your thoughts on that. I'd also say that in a future call, perhaps you could present on serverless.com, but also the event gateway that you just open sourced.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to suggest.
That sounds fantastic. So we'd love to present, and I'll work with either Chris or you, Mark, to schedule that in. We've got a couple of things we'd love to chat about, of course. But in the meantime, we'll certainly jump in and participate on that document and fill in any insights that we think we have. So our whole team will jump in there and start weighing in.
Awesome. Sounds great.
So Austin, I have a question. So is your company doing a serverless platform, or you are doing as a user of the serverless platform or serverless framework?
Right now we're working on the serverless framework as well as the serverless platform, which is kind of the seeks to serve the management needs of kind of operating and managing later stages of a serverless application. So things like logging and metrics and collaborating on serverless applications across teams, across organizations. So that serverless platform is coming out soon. We've also introduced a new piece of infrastructure, which we think of as the missing piece of the serverless architecture. It's something called the event gateway. Yeah, I'd be excited to present on that soon here, where I could expand on it a bit. But we're a startup. We are started as open source. The framework will always be open source, and we have big plans for that in general. And a team of 15, half of us are located in San Francisco. The other half are distributed everywhere. And we've got great stuff coming out. So looking forward to talking more about that and working with all of you to see if there are places we could collaborate.
Oh, great. Yeah, so that's great. We have a section on in the white paper on the spec, functional spec. Yeah, if you can take a look at that, that would be great. And give your comments or input.
Yes, we've already checked it out. I think we're going to start providing input in just a bit here. But yeah, that's very interesting to us. And we've been thinking about the same thing since early 2016, when I saw the other providers coming out with really interesting serverless computing options. And then I started hearing from our user base, hey, we're using lots of Amazon and we love Amazon, but we really want to kind of have functions sitting on other cloud providers to take advantage of some of the other interesting managed services they provide, like the Google Vision API or something like that. And we realized there was an opportunity to try and figure out what a standard function, signature, and kind of model could look like, and figure out how to make that work across all the compute providers, which is actually a big challenge, because on the surface they look very similar, but once you get under the hood, they have very different personalities and quirks. But we made a lot of progress on that front. We have integrations with maybe 7 or 8 different serverless compute providers right now. Some of the biggest cloud providers like Microsoft and IBM actually authored and maintained their integrations in the framework, which is great. And yeah, we have a lot of plans to expand on this, and being adjacent to what's happening here in the CNCF and the standards that you are all working on sounds like the best possible way to do this. So we'll check it out and we'll provide some insight and opinions shortly here.
Great, thanks. Yeah.
All right, I don't have anything else on that. If anyone has anything else before we wrap.
Yeah, there was just a quick thing I was going to say. Has anyone heard of this conference called Jeff Conf? The first one was in London, and it's focusing on serverless.
Yep, we've heard of it. It's a long-running joke that's turned into maybe a long-running conference now. I think we sponsored the first one. We'd like to attend the second one. There's just the conference is happening right now, so it's hard to.
Yeah, so it's in Milan. It's in Milan, and it's on the 29th of September. It's a one-day event. I think the tickets are quite cheap as well. So I've been invited to go and speak there about OpenFAS, and I thought it might be relevant for some people if they're around Europe at that time.
Awesome, thanks for
being and
I
believe that there's a serverless conf. The last one was in Austin earlier this year, and I think they're planning another one at the end of the year. I forget the dates.
Do you know who's behind the conference? It's not the serverless framework, is it?
No, that's serverless conference is put on by a cloud guru.
Okay, thanks.
I can give you a link to it. All right, so action item for everyone on the call is to take a look at the white paper. Yep. We'd like to have a more thorough review of it next week. Chris, I believe we're on track for a meeting next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our normally scheduled meeting. It's funny that Doug called this meeting because he wanted to use it to drive to finalize the paper, and he ended it himself. So it happens. Yeah. So next week, hopefully Doug could kind of drive that to conclusion with everyone else. We also have the Kubeless people, Sebastian and folks presenting next week to the group. And then also for kind of my last agenda item for next week, I'd like to see if Austin and his serverless folks would want to present if we have time for them. And also I kind of want to basically finalize a plan of when we want to present to the TOC, because essentially we should get in front of them, summarize our white paper, summarize some of the projects that have been presented to the group, and try to make a set of recommendations. We could kind of move forward on things and all that jazz.
Sorry.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you all for attending.
Yep, cool. Thanks, and see everyone next week.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Yes, bye.
Bye.